Meet Kevin Harrington.
With over 500 products launched and generating over $5 billion in product sales in over 100 countries, Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the Infomercial, as seen on TV pioneer, and original shark on the Emmy Award-winning TV show Shark Tank. Kevin creates massive brands by combining great products with superstar talent like Kim Kardashian, 50 Cent, Kathy and Paris Hilton, Kris Jenner, CeeLo Green, George Foreman, Montel Williams, Jack LaLanne, Flo Rida, Hulk Hogan, Billy Mays, Paula Abdul, and Tony Little.
My brand now is worth over $3 billion. So my advice to everybody, if you even have an idea, you'd want to go to Kevin Harrington.
Kevin has been featured on 2020, CNN, Fox Business, Bloomberg, Jim Cramer's The Street, MTV, Good Morning America, the CBS Morning News, The Today Show, The View, and The Daily Double on Jeopardy!
Now the last clue, back to the Shark Tank.
I'm Kevin Harrington.
A renowned speaker, Kevin has appeared on stage for organizations like AT&T, Microsoft, and MIT.
Kevin is a pioneer of the direct response industry and has risen to nearly iconic status over the years.
Kevin helped to found EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. An entrepreneur for over 40 years, Kevin has built 20 businesses to over $100 million each. That's why he's the original shark from Shark Tank, the $1 billion man, Kevin Harrington. Let's give Kevin a warm welcome.
How many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Let me see, show of hands. So almost everybody, right? Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm really here for two reasons. Number one, I believe that Garden Light LED is the best lighting company in America, okay? Because they've done my house, okay? So, Corey, where's Corey? Did Corey leave the room? That son of a gun. Okay. Well, I'm giving him all these accolades. And Xavier. No, I have amazing lighting, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about magical transformation. And I had a lighting company come and do my house, and they actually used your fixtures. Okay. And so when I finally said, "Oh no, wait, I got to get the best over here," and Michelle came over, and then she said, "Hey, I would like for you to come and speak to our group." I said, that would be great, but I have to experience it myself. And so I have just an amazing before and after of the old lighting company to today, and including my dock with some fish lights and snook lights and all. It's really very, very powerful. So there you are, Corey. Thank you. All right. So, so the first reason I'm here is because I believe in Garden Light LED. And the second reason I'm here is because just about everybody here said they're an entrepreneur, and that's really what I focus on today, is empowering entrepreneurs and teaching entrepreneurs, working with, partnering with. You know, why do people come on Shark Tank? They want to get a partner in a shark, or a Rolodex that the shark has, or some way to help supercharge their business. Yes, sometimes, yeah, they all want money, but sometimes they even say, I don't care about the money. I really want to be, I want to get the advice. I want to get the information and the help and the advisory services kind of thing. So anyway, make a long story short, today I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about how a couple Shark Tank stories, how I got started as an entrepreneur, and then I'm going to share some sales tips and techniques. And we have some amazing folks that are here today. Tom Zigler, Zig Ziglar's son, is going to be coming on after myself, and then Timm, and we'll more about that. But I'll start with a couple Shark Tank stories, because people, when I'm running through airports, they'll grab me and they'll say, hey, tell me about that guy, Kevin O'Leary, okay? Now, how many recognize Mr. Wonderful, right? Okay? Now, do you know why he calls himself Mr. Wonderful? Because nobody else will. Right? Yeah, he's the only one. In fact, he gets in fights sometimes on the set. He actually is not a bad guy. 2 glasses of his own wine, and he's perfect. Okay, because he sells O'Leary's wine on QVC, believe it or not. Yeah, he actually is a pretty cool guy. But Mark Cuban does quite a few more deals than O'Leary does, by the way. So anyway, I got started way back. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, one of 6 kids. So we grew up with a house of 8 of us, 2 bathrooms. I said 6 of us shared the 1 bathroom, and I was number 4. in the line of 6 kids. So by the time I got there, I took a cold shower every day, right? So, and getting dinner was always tough because I wasn't the first one in there. And, I had to learn how to do things on my own. And my father originally was a bartender, saved up enough money, and then opened up his first bar called Harrington's Pub. And there I am at 11. I was working in his place. And it was crazy because I kind of did everything. I said I'd be maitre d', I'd be the busboy, I'd be behind the bars and back of the kitchen. And my father would say, hey, look, one of the bartenders didn't show. Go help the bartender. I'm serving drinks at Harrington's Irish Pub. And I'm like, if today you walked into a bar and a 6th grader were serving you drinks, you'd call the police, okay? Think about that. Or CNN would be outside with helicopters overhead. And so, but that's how I grew up. And my dad said, Kevin, you need to own your own business. So here I was, Cincinnati, Ohio. It gets cold in the winter. And if you had a crack in your driveway, that water would get in there. When it got cold, it would freeze and triple the size of the crack. So I came along and said, hey, let's seal those cracks. Let's beautify the driveway. We'll show some pictures of that in a bit. But I then got into heating and air conditioning because as I got into college, I had to pay for my own college. So I couldn't make it on just a part-time business. Driveway sealing was summertime only, part-time. Great while I was in high school, but I got to college, got into heating and air. And so I was literally data mining back in the 70s, because this was 1976 when I started this company, the heating and air business, my freshman year in college. And I went down to the courthouse and got the list of all the new real estate transactions. And so we would then call these people, and by the way, there's hundreds and hundreds a week of real estate in Cincinnati. I don't know how many there are in your local town, but I got this, matched it up to be able to get their phone number. We call them up and say, congratulations on the purchase of your house. Number one, we knew they had good credit because they just bought a home. Number two, they're interested in maybe fixing things up, so it may be an idea for any of you here today. But we said, don't turn that furnace on because it can be a dangerous piece of equipment. We're going to come out, do a safety check, absolutely free, as a welcome gift to the neighborhood, and we'll clean it while we're there, absolutely free also. Well, we were getting hundreds of leads a week. We were closing more than 10 jobs a week while I was a freshman in college, and we built that to $5 million back in the 70s, and in annual sales. And so we were just installing furnaces and air conditioning systems in 2 feet of snow because it was a year-round business. And this was the early days of my entrepreneurial background. And then I finally decided I wanted to move in another direction, and I went and sat with a business broker and realized this business broker, because I wanted to buy a business maybe, and he had 200 businesses for sale. Pizza parlors, delicatessens, laundromats, probably some lighting companies, restaurants, flower shops, you name it. And I'm looking at this list of businesses, and he's got the rents and the percentage of food costs and the leases with the mall and on all these different businesses. And I said, this is what I want to do. So I got into the business brokerage business. But I'd be sitting at the closing table, and someone now owns that laundromat or that restaurant, and they'd say, well, I need a corporate structure, I need insurance, do you have any recommendations? How about I gotta put some ads together, maybe some new menus for my restaurant? So I started referring them out to people, and then I'm thinking, wow, I got this accountant, 10 new businesses, and I got this guy, the lawyer's incorporating dozens of companies, and I said, I'm gonna bring it in-house. So we opened the Small Business Center, and that is right here, okay? So the slides are a little different than I'm used to, but the Small Business Center, we sold the business. I leased a whole floor of an office building, and we could literally incorporate you, do your insurance, your accounting, your books, your records, advertising, graphics, everything under one roof. And I call it sort of like the first WeWorks of its day, because this was 1980 when we opened this. And then we ended up opening 30 of these around the US. And so had a lot of fun dealing with lots of entrepreneurs all over in initially Cincinnati, but then when we had 30 of these up and running, it was a pretty powerful little venture. So for me, I go back to this slide, everything was selling. And I learned the hard way that, you know, we had to come up with a good opportunity, a good way to solve people's problems in the selling process. And that's a key differentiator. Many people that sell, they think of closing, they think of making the sale, making the commission, getting the money, and that's why a lot of people sell and a lot of people build a business. But at the end of the day, if you actually solve people's problems, it's an easier way to make the sale. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about here, because I had a change in my world happen when I was going into this small business center business. I started reading Zig Ziglar's amazing content. And how many are familiar with Zig Ziglar, the family, the name, the great background that Zig had? 3 million copies of his first book, See You at the Top. And this actually came out back when I was when I was going from high school into college. And so this was helping me supercharge my thinking and changing my mindset to be thinking about the other side of the table. Because when Corey came over and was talking to me about my lighting, he seemed to have this philosophy also, I think, because I had a problem. I had spent a lot of money on lighting, and my house wasn't being lit up, and it was, you know, really was very upsetting to me, because I thought I got the right guy. I thought I was going to be happy. I spent the money, contracted it out, and didn't have what I wanted. Corey was there to solve my problem, and he did, and it's amazing. And so I think that's the philosophy of Zig Ziglar, which we're going to be talking quite a bit more about here as the day goes on. So just finishing off my story, I co-founded the EO. It was actually called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization in the very beginning, 1987. It's now called EO, but we are in 170 chapters in 50 countries now. So it's been a very powerful organization around the world to help support entrepreneurs on a global basis. When I go to Shanghai, I meet with the 20, 30 top entrepreneurs in the EO of Shanghai. They got about 250 over there. But I'm going to India, I'm going to Singapore. As I go, every country I go to, next week I'll be in Zurich and Stockholm. So we have chapters all over the world. So this is how I got into television. Quick little segue, and I'm going to be introducing the rest of our team here today. But as I look around the room, I'm seeing a few gray hairs around here, so I'm going to talk. How many remember TV from the 60s and the 70s, black and white television maybe? Okay, over half the room, good. I certainly remember. In fact, I said before there was a remote control for your TV, I was the remote control, because my dad said, change the channel, okay? And so, you know, it black and white, sometimes change the channel. It's like we had like 4, maybe 5 channels, but it was, you know, you had to turn that knob from one to the next. And if the channel didn't come in right, you had to get a little tin foil put in there in the antenna area, right? So I remember that. In fact, this is dating those that said yes, they remember all of this. So, but I go back to cable TV. When cable hit in the early 80s, I'm like, wow, wait a minute, we're going to have 24 hours of sports, ESPN, 24 hours of movies, HBO, 24 hours of news, CNN. And I said, this is amazing. I said, you know, I heard about this Discovery Channel, so I got the 30 channel package, and I'm going through all 30 channels, and I get to the very last channel, saw all of these all along the way, HBO and CNN. I get to Discovery, and that is what's on the screen, colored bars. So I literally called the cable company and I said, hey, this 30-channel package, it's pretty good, but I'm not getting anything on the last channel, channel 30, Discovery. And they said, oh, Discovery is only a 18-hour-a-day network. 6 hours a day, that's all you're going to get. And I was blown away. I'm like, how can that be? They said, well, it's a new channel. They only have limited budgets for production. In fact, in the 18 hours, that's a 6-hour block that runs 3 times a day, okay? So they don't need to run it a 4th time. And so I put that in my head. I said, I'm going to find something to put on that time. And I used to travel to a lot of trade shows. To this day, I do about 30 trade shows a year. I've already been to 3 through the first week of February, the Consumer Electronics Show, a finance show, the auto show, etc. We got the houseware show coming up, the hardware show, Global Pet Expo is in a couple weeks. So I go to a lot of trade shows. I was at the Philadelphia Home Show, and of course, as a business broker back in the day, we sold all different kinds of industries. So, go to the restaurant show to understand the restaurant industry. And so I'm at this Philadelphia Home Show, and there's one booth and this huge crowd around it. And I'm trying to find what's going on in that booth. And there's a guy with a knife in his hand, and he's cutting through a Coca-Cola can, through a muffler, through a pair of sneakers. Okay? And I'm like, what's he doing? He said, it's called the Ginsu knife. And he said, it's 2 knives for $19.95, and literally, I saw this gentleman, I found out his name after he finally got on break, but I saw him do this pitch once, twice, a 3rd time, then he took a break, and I went over and introduced myself. His name was Arnold Morris. I said, Arnold, how long have you been doing this Ginsu pitch? And he said, Kevin, he says, more than a dozen years, and I do it 40 weeks a year. Next week, I'm at the Iowa State Fair. Philadelphia, he was at the Philadelphia Home Show for 8 days, all day long, the same pitch. And that's when I said, Arnold, I said, that is an amazing story. I've seen you in just a couple hours do thousands of dollars in sales, but it's to 10 people at a time. I said, are you familiar with what's going on in the world of cable? There's 6 hours a day of nothing, and why don't we film your presentation, cut a deal with these guys, and see if we can make some money together. And that's what we did, and here's that.
Now, you take a tomato, the weight of the knife alone cuts that tomato. Let me ask you something. How many knives you have at home this sharp? You could drop the tomato on top. Pretty sharp, right? You know what one young lady said? Can you cut them thin? I said, thin, 1 tomato will last you all week long.
So how many remember ever seeing that kind of a pitch, right? Almost everybody. So that was in the early 80s. And this is the part of the story that most people have never heard. And let me tell you what happened. 2 knives for $19.95. When Arnold was in front of a live crowd, people could kind of touch the knives, they could feel them, they could cut with them afterwards, and they were putting up the money for it. 2 knives for $19.95. Seemed like a good deal. He was making a lot of money, very successful. We put it on TV, and it was selling a lot of product, but we found out that for every 1,000 phone calls, we only had 500 orders. So people would watch a 30-minute show, they'd watch it for 30 minutes, call the number, and then not order? What was the problem? Well, they didn't know how good the knives were. And so there was an issue of perceived value, in all honesty. What was, because we called the people. We wanted to find out, why did you watch it, call, but not order? Oh, well, they asked about the quality and the this and the that. There was some problem with value. So this is where the master that Zig Ziglar is and has been a major influence, as I call my sales mentor. Zig, Secrets of Closing the Sale, came out in 1984, the year that I started doing infomercials. And Zig has created thousands of successful people, thousands of millionaires, and has helped me be very successful because Zig had many teachings. And we're going to teach actually a number of his closes today, this afternoon. But the first one was relative to the Ginsu, because if the selling price is here, but the value is here, you're not going to make the sale. You have to raise the value stacks above the selling price so that the value exceeds the price. And so this came along these lines. What we did was, as we were learning these techniques from the teachings of Ziglar, we said, okay, 1995 maybe it's going to be too cheap because of what we're going to do, so we raised the price to $29.95, and we said, but wait, there's more. There you go, okay? But wait, there's more, right? 6 free steak knives, a paring knife, a bread knife, and now we created a value stack for $29.95. Didn't get 2 knives, you got 22 knives, okay? And of course it was $29.95, a little bit higher price. But now we were closing 80% of the phone calls, which is, it should be. I mean, why would so many people call and not order? And in today's world, we use internet now, so it's a little bit different. But we found that a good offer with the right value stack, but wait, there's more, will create an 80% close rate, unless it's a $300, $400, $500 product. So I mean, this is what actually then took the Ginsu, because we would have had nice success with it, but it became a $500 million success. So let's give Arnold and Zig Ziglar a round of applause for that. All right? Thank you. And by the way, Arnold was getting a really healthy royalty check, and he said, Kevin, he said, can I introduce you to some friends of mine, and if you use them in an infomercial, will you pay me a finder's fee on everything that you do with them? And I said, yes, let's do it. We signed it. First guy he brought me was Billy Mays. And so for those that know Billy, he passed away a few years ago, lived right here in town, but we brought him, he grew up in Pittsburgh, we brought him here. The reason I'm here, I was at Home Shopping Network this morning for 3 hours getting products through the system over there. So HSN was founded and born right here in St. Pete, Florida, just right across the bridge, probably 13 minutes from here. And so Billy lived here, Tony Little lived here, Forbes Riley lived here, Anthony Sullivan lived here. Everybody was moving to the St. Pete, Tampa area at one time. And so we did a ton of major successful things with Billy Mays and many, many others. So it's been a good run. I have one more Shark Tank story, then I want to tell you a little more about Zig, and then I'm going to introduce Tom Zigler. So, because people, they always ask about the sharks. And so this is a picture, this is a wedding. Over on the left is myself with Robert Herjavec. He got married, and there's Barbara Corcoran. Folks ask me about Barbara. We were talking about Barbara at lunch, and Barbara's absolutely the sweetest shark, the nicest shark. In fact, she'll do a deal sometimes just to get O'Leary out of the deal, okay, which I love, okay? On one deal, the guy wanted $50,000 for 20% of the company, and O'Leary was getting the deal. She says, no, I'm going to loan you the 50 grand. I don't want any piece of the company, and just so you don't do business with that Mr. Wonderful over there, okay? So we had a lot of fun with that. But so let me tell you how this all kind of comes together here. So one day we're all hanging out, and we would shoot. We'd get in at 7 in the morning, shoot till 8, 10 o'clock at night. But the Dancing with the Stars TV show is on ABC Network, along with Shark Tank. And so the Dancing with the Stars producers were over at the set, and they're like, hey, we want to do a cross promotion. We want to get a shark or two on Dancing with the Stars so we can kind of cross promote the shows, right? And so right away, Robert Herjavec said, I want to do it. And my wife and I were like hanging out. She's like, I said, what do you think? She says, no, I don't want you to go on that show, okay? And I said, oh, what's the problem? She says, they dance way too close on that show, okay? I said, you'd be jealous if I went on the show? She said, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to see that on national television. So I said, all right, well, no problem. Let's let Robert do the first one, and then maybe we'll see from there. So this is a really cool segment here. Robert on Dancing with the Stars. Watch the very open because it looks like Shark Tank. So watch this. Kid never do any of those things, okay? So I'm glad I didn't do the show. But now here's where it really gets crazy. The girl in the middle is the girl that he married from Dancing with the Stars, okay? Kim Johnson. So, and my wife said, I told you they got a little close on that show. I said, well, they did after the show, I'm sure, too, right? Well, they now have twins, by the way. So let's give them a round of applause also. God bless. And they had recently a segment where the twins came on the show, the 10th anniversary. It was a great time. So I really had a great run with Shark Tank. Today you've got Alex Rodriguez as a shark recently. I'm not sure how the basketball player, Charles Barkley, is a shark now. This is pretty crazy. And Jeff Foxworthy, Ashton Kutcher, it's kind of celebrity Shark Tank today. But I had a good run. I did 175 segments, and it's now, the show's running all around the world, and have had a lot of fun. But I wouldn't be standing here, and I wouldn't have gotten that call to be on Shark Tank if I had not learned how to sell. And I truly believe that when I was selling the driveway ceiling, I was knocking on doors. They were slamming the doors quickly. The very first 20 people I went to said no. In fact, they looked over my head. Are you here to see Johnny? What are you doing, right? I mean, like, no, I'm the owner of the company. I was 15, so it was 45, 47 years ago or something, right? So, I had to learn how to sell, learn how to close, learn how to solve problems. And so my master, Zig Ziglar, I credit him to help me do all of the billions of dollars that I've done over the years, because we use successful closing techniques in every single infomercial that we did. And we did hundreds and hundreds, 500 plus. So that's what we're going to share with you here today, some of the techniques. I'm going to bring up Tom Zigler in a second, but this is the most famous saying of Zig Ziglar, and the one that really struck me from day one. And just watch what Zig says here in this video.
You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. The picture that you have of yourself, what a dramatic difference it will make. When you buy into the concept that you can have everything in life you want, if you will just help enough other people get what they want.
Love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, Zig Ziglar. And so I'm so excited to introduce our next speaker, Tom Zigler, Zig's only son. Zig passed away, I believe it was 6 years ago. And Zig was the kind of guy that he didn't use social media. And so, Facebook was around, but, he wasn't one of those, kind of social media kind of people. But when he passed away, Tom and the family said, let's set up a Facebook page so people can leave a tribute to their father. And 4.5 million people are now Facebook fans of Zig Ziglar. So it's pretty amazing to have that kind of a turnout. And in fact, Mark Timm, who you're going to meet in a bit, and Tom and I got together and said, we need to take Zig Ziglar's teachings, the 30 plus books, 30 plus languages, the thousands of hours of recordings, all of that content, let's digitize it and bring it back. Because the millennials, I got 2 kids, one's 30 and one's 21. My 21-year-old doesn't know who Zig Ziglar is until now that he's taken all these master class teachings that we've put together. So we actually, myself and Tom and Mark are partners in taking all of the Zig Ziglar content back to the future today for the new crowd of folks that maybe haven't heard of him, maybe some that have, but didn't really understand the power of Zig Ziglar. So Tom, come on out here.
I tell you what, I've had the chance to travel with Kevin. We went down to Brazil last year, and the guy is unbelievable. He's nonstop energy. He connects with everybody. The level of trust and engagement wherever he goes is through the roof. And I just want you to know that he can eat a steak bigger than he is. The guy is unbelievable. So I have a question here today. How many of you here have either seen me before, or else this is your first time? Can I see your hands? That's like 100%. All right. So I want to have some fun. I want to share some things. I've got a book coming out. It's called Choose to Win. And here's the simple concept. You've got a choice today. You've got a choice whether you're going to take something home with you, apply it to your business, your life, or you've got a choice not to use it and nothing changes. How many of you agree with that, right? It's whether we use it or not that it makes the difference. I've had a lot of conversations over the last day and a half, and several of you said, I'm just looking for one thing, one nugget I can use that will make a difference in my life and in my business, and that's what we want to deliver to you today. But we also want to give you the tools and resources once you go home so you can stay plugged in. And we're going to be talking about our Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass. I want to share with you the first trip of the year I had. It's kind of fun. I've been working on this book. The book comes out March 5th, and I had a speaking engagement in Grand Rapids, Michigan on January 3rd. Because everybody wants to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan on January 3rd, right? So we had the epic ice storm of January 2nd in Dallas. Anybody remember that storm? It was the storm that almost but didn't happen. So American calls me, or they leave a message. They say, your flight's may be delayed tomorrow. So I decided to leave on January 1st so that I don't miss the plane to do the talk on January 3rd. Does that make sense? Anybody ever arrange your schedule so you'll be there? So you know what's great about traveling on January 1st? You don't waste any time watching football. I mean, it is just unbelievable. You just get on the plane, there's nobody there, you get there. January 3rd, I'm speaking to a company called National Nail. Now, I just have a question. How many of you have heard Ziglar in person? Anybody here, a few people, read his books, listened to it? Okay. So I'm speaking to a company called National Nail, and see, everywhere I go, this is kind of fun. Zig stories happen to me wherever I go. So I'm about to get on stage, and this guy comes out of the audience. His name is Nathan. He says, hey, Tom, can I get a selfie with you? And I'm like, sure, no big deal. And I'm like, wait a second, I don't know you. Why do you want a selfie? This is what he tells me. He says, oh, my dad was a big fan of your dad. And he knew that you're going to be here, and he said, make sure you meet Tom and get a selfie. So we get a selfie right before I go on stage, and then I said, well, what's the story? And he says, well, 25 years ago, Baton Rouge, your dad spoke there. My dad heard your dad. He waited in line for an hour to get an autograph. And then, as he comes into line, your dad stands up and says, hey, what do you do? And my dad's a pastor, so my dad said, I'm a pastor. Tom, he said, your dad stopped the line. They talked for like 5 minutes, and then your dad asked my dad to pray for him. So I'm like, dude, you got to pray for me like right now. So literally, he prays for me, and I go on stage. How cool is it to have a legacy like that? I mean, how awesome is that? And so I'm going to go around sharing the legacy, my own stories, some dad's stories. I'm going to share some of them. So the event goes great, and when you're done with the event, you run to the airport. I go to the airport now. There's a direct flight from Grand Rapids to Dallas, but I wasn't going to be able to make it because I was speaking in the afternoon and I was going to get done a little later than that flight was. So I walk into the airport, I go to the gate, and look up at the gate where my flight is leaving from, except for something unusual has happened. The flight from Grand Rapids to Dallas, where Dallas is my home, the nonstop, it's delayed. It hadn't left yet. And so you know what I did? I go up to the front, I look at the gate agent, and I give her my biggest smile, right? Because what do I want? I want on that plane. I don't want to go Grand Rapids, Chicago, Dallas. I want to go Grand Rapids, Dallas. And so I asked her the question, right? Is there any room on the plane? She goes, oh yeah, there's lots of seats. I go, fantastic. I want on that plane. I'm going to Dallas anyway. Here's my itinerary. She goes, okay. And then she starts mashing buttons. Now, this is all Dad knew about computers. When you worked on a computer, you were mashing buttons. So she started mashing buttons, and then her face gets contorted, and she gets a funny look, and then she looks at me and says, I can't help you. I go, but I'm going to Dallas through Chicago. Why can't you put me on that plane? There's empty seats. You're going to have to call the help desk. So I called the help desk. Guess what they said? Nothing. The intercom came on, 25-minute hold. So I'm there listening to their music. Isn't that music awesome? And as I'm listening to music, after 20 minutes, guess what happens? The gate door closes. That plane with all those empty seats going nonstop to Dallas leaves without me. And then the gate agent looks at me 30 seconds after they close the door. And this is what she says. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to inform you that we have overbooked the Grand Rapids to Chicago flight, and we're going to pay somebody $330 to get off the plane. And I'm like, she looks at me, I go, I'll take that plane that just left. So here's the thing, the airline is paying somebody else to get off the plane that I wanted to get off for free. So now I have a choice to make, right? I can have a little Ziglar pity party right there because I'm getting home 4 hours later than I would have. I've got to connect through Chicago. Or I can make a decision. I can make a choice. And I decided to change the atmosphere. Business owners, your business is to change the atmosphere. That's what your role is. So all this news came in, and now the Ziglar legacy is at stake. And so one of the things that I do when I fly is I give all the flight crew a little book of big quotes and a Starbucks card. So I'm like, okay, we're on this flight. Nothing I can do about it. Right, can I change anything? No, the flight's left. But I changed my thinking. We get on the plane, and this is what I do. Who wants to be a volunteer? Who wants to play the role of flight crew? Do you want to do it? Okay, right over here, you're flight crew. So I come on the plane, and we get kind of crazy with them, okay? Because they think you're weird. I say, hey, how are you doing today?
Very good.
Good. Do you like Starbucks?
Yeah, I'll take it.
You like Starbucks?
I'm from Seattle.
You're from Seattle, okay.
We like it for free. Starbucks awards.
So there's a gift for you. There's a Starbucks card. It's got $5 on it. You guys get all the blame for the weather, the mechanics, but you never get any of the credit when things go smooth. I really appreciate what you do. You guys are fantastic. Oh, and here's some more for the pilots and the rest of the crew. Do you feel good?
Yeah.
Now there's a real Starbucks card in there. Yeah, so give it to somebody who likes Starbucks. So I get on the plane, and I do that with all the flight attendants, and then all of a sudden they start coming out of the woodwork. They all want selfies, right? They're just going nuts, and when I get off the plane, the pilots want selfies. We changed the atmosphere. The whole plane was different. You can change the atmosphere of your business. Sometimes you go to a client's home, a prospect's home, you can change the atmosphere. Sometimes they're not having a good day. Sometimes you're only the only light that they see.
That's right.
Right?
That's good.
It's real good. So one of the flight attendants comes up to me and she says, she leans over kind of private. She said, hey, I just want to thank you. She said, this means a lot to me. My brother just passed away, and it's something that he would have done. What kind of business are we in? You can have everything in life you want if you'll just have other people get what they want. I mean, I love what we do. And the book, Choose to Win, that's what it's all about. It's about this process. Dad, he traveled the world. I mean, he spoke all over the world. And we'll get into that in a second, but it didn't start that way. Here's Mom and Dad. Mom's 16 in that picture, Dad's 18. I mean, look at that. I got an email from somebody yesterday. See, they met at the YWCA in Jackson, Mississippi. And the email from a guy yesterday was, hey, my office overlooks the YWCA where your mom and dad met. Right? Because you know why he knows that? Because Dad talked about it everywhere he went. Because his #1 account was Mom. So that's how they started off. This is how they finished up. In the late 70s. Isn't this the picture of how we want to be? I mean, we want to. Now, they're both from Mississippi. Mom's from Jackson, Dad was from Yazoo. They didn't start off with much. And yet, through time, 250 million people we estimate were impacted by Dad. That's a lot of people. So you all know somebody who's impacted by Ziglar. So how did that happen? It happened through his books, his life-changing information. There's the book at the very first one that Kevin talked about that got him started, See You at the Top. Over 4.5 million fans on Facebook. We have one of the top business podcasts out there, over 50 million downloads. People like Seth Godin and Dave Ramsey and Simon Sinek. So many people. Now, I really love this slide, although it was quoted in the previous session. We're in the transportation business. We help you get from where you are to where you want to go. I was cracking up on the inside. This is the business that we're really in. Dad had that quote. We help you get from where you are to where you want to be. That's what we do at Zigler. We help you transform. This is the word that I love. We help you transform into the person God created you to be. How many of you believe you have untapped potential? Right? How many of you believe the difference between where you are and where you want to be is unleashing that potential? How many of you know that you know everything there is to know about sales? Okay, good. No hands went up. Awesome. The more I learn about sales, the more I need to know. Right? The more I don't know, the more I want to learn. How many of you ever met a natural-born salesperson? Somebody who's born into sales. Are salespeople born or created? They grow into it? Well, I have news for you. I'm a born salesman. I've got proof, okay? So I was born February 1st, 1965. On February 2nd, 1965, in Columbia, South Carolina, where I was born, Dad put a birth announcement in the newspaper. And here's what it said. John Thomas Zigler. It was awesome. A birth of a salesman. How cool was that? Now I want to be fair. You know, Dad was real clear. He said, I don't care what you do with your life. You can sell anything you want. You can sell cars. You can sell books and tapes. You can sell. No, he didn't say that. Well, Dad told us this. Here's a lesson for you. You might want to write this down. When Dad was raising us, he said this. He said, I'm behind you 100%. You can do anything that you want in life. Anything that you set your mind to, I'm going to support. The only thing that I request and require is that you do it with 100% integrity and 100% effort. You know, there's a proverb that says, raise up a child in the way they should go, right? And they will not depart from these paths. Well, in Hebrew, the way you should go, it means bent, right? So anybody here more than one child? They're all identical, right? Same personality. No, they're like completely different. It's like, how did these two human beings come out of this? So the way they're bent simply means that they have different personalities. Some like art, some like science, some are introverts, some are extroverts. So we raise them with principles and values. That's the same, but we encourage them in their strengths, their gifts, and their talents. That's what Dad did for us. Now, let me show you my family, because I love my family. That lady in the top right-hand corner, that's my mom. Now, she passed away last July. She was 90 years old. Does anybody know what Dad called Mom? The redhead. And she was a decided redhead, which means that one day, she just decided. We also call Mom the happy hugger because if it was moving, she would stop and hug it. If it wasn't moving, she'd dust it off and sell it. And so Dad said this. He said, you never would have heard of Zig Ziglar if it hadn't been for the redhead. That's the truth. I know them both. That is the truth. So they have this relationship. Now, in the picture with the whole family, that's my daughter, Alexandra. She was 17 in that picture. My mom's in the middle. That's my wife, Chachas. Chachas is from Campeche, Mexico. Now, kneeling are my two sisters, Cindy and Julie, and of course, there's Dad. So this is our family. This is who we are. That last picture on the bottom, though, is the one that I want to point to you. We were at our last event. Dad, at the end of his life, he was suffering from Alzheimer's. Anybody had personal experience with that? Okay, that's no good, right? We knew, and the way Dad was, the more he could be out, the more he could be around people, the more life he had. He got energy from other people. And so every chance we got, we would go places. And this was a fundraiser. And so we're at the table. It's the last time we were actually out. We realized later that was the last picture. The photographer comes to our table and says, can I take your picture? Now, when the cameraman says, can I take your picture, where do you look? Where's Dad looking? The redhead. So here's the lesson. You can tell the quality of a man's heart by where his eyes are focused. Ladies, you can tell the quality of a woman's heart by where her eyes are focused. Okay, this is the way I was raised. This is This is what I grew up on. So business and sales and everything that we did professionally was in the context that, you know what, you just do what's right. Right? You honor these commandments. You do things that set you up to win. You make choices in your everyday life that build a platform that allows you to help others up. As business owners, that's your responsibility. You got people coming in who are desperate. They've never been given guidance. They don't have a dream bigger than a used dirt bike. And they're waiting on you, they're counting on you to breathe life and to tell them they can do something, they can have something, they can be something. And the first thing they're going to watch is you. How do you treat others? How do you treat your family? How do you manage your time? When the customer's obviously wrong, how do you handle that situation? Now, I know nobody in here has ever had a customer that was wrong. Am I right? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Now, there is one thing I want to tell you, though. When you look at this picture, I learned this. You cannot copy everything that my father did. It just doesn't work for everybody. Like he called Mom the redhead. I started calling my wife the blackhead, and she didn't like it. Now he works every time. Let me give you some background on this picture. This sounds like a great picture. Do you know the backstory? The backstory is when Dad was 5, his father died. He was the 10th of 12 kids. His mom had a 5th grade education. So he's raised by a single mom with a 5th grade education in the heart of the Great Depression in Yazoo City, Mississippi. It wasn't all bad. He didn't have to start work until he was 6. What did he do? He sold peanuts on the corner. Never did well in school. Never did well in school. Went into the Navy, got a little bit of college, didn't do well there. He never graduated from college. Gets his first sales job, 2.5 years. Didn't sell anything. All he did, he sold his car, sold his furniture. And then a leader in the company, at a meeting, just like this, came to him, put his hands on his shoulders and said, "Zig, in all my life, I've never seen such a waste. But if you believed in yourself, you can be a champion. All you got to do is believe in yourself and go to work on a regular schedule." That year, he finished number 2 out of 7,000 salespeople. In the previous 2.5 years, he wasn't in the top 5,000. Do you have a Zig Ziglar working for you? What if P.C. Merrill never said that? And then look at Mom. She's 16 in that picture. Full of energy and life, her whole life's in front of her. What you don't know is that when she was 10, she heard a gunshot in the other room. She walks in, her father's committed suicide. What would the sociologist, the psychologist, the psychiatrist say the potential of this couple getting married and ending up like this would be? So, what was different? Was it the choices they made? Was it their belief in each other? Was it their faith in God? Was it the decisions they made in their life that said, you know what, this was a bum deal? Anybody ever notice that life is hard? Anybody ever have life happen to you? I mean, I don't know if it happened around here, but in Dallas, 2008, there was a big thing in the economy. Did y'all hear about that? The mortgage thing? I don't know. Yeah, it happens, but here's the reality. We can choose to win. Right? We can make the choices that will set us on fire, that will unleash not only ourselves, but the people who work with us. I mean, could you imagine going home at night and sleeping knowing that the people who are working with you on a daily basis are achieving their dreams? I mean, yesterday at one of the talks, it was, yeah, I love my job because one of our people were able to buy the house in the right school district. Isn't that what it's all about? So, I'll tell you a little funny story. On our Facebook page, we got 4.5 million people. So a few years ago, I put this quote up on Facebook, and the quote was, money's not the most important thing, but it is reasonably close to oxygen. Y'all ever heard that quote? How many of y'all agree with that? And this lady says, she writes in there, she says, oh, that's Zig Ziglar. I just knew he was all about the money. Can you believe that? On our Facebook page. And then, okay, this is like the hand grenade in the room, right? Now, back then, we only had 2.5 million fans, which is still a lot. And so, I didn't have to respond. I just watched our timeline. It was like ding, 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 ding. And the responses were, oh, have you ever heard Zig Ziglar speak? Have you ever read one of his books? Have you Googled him to know what he stands for? Do you know Zig Ziglar? These went on 40, 50, 60 messages. I go away for 2 hours, and then I come back. And then I did something that nobody here has ever done. I clicked on that lady's picture. And I went to her timeline and I snooped on her. Now, who here has done that? I'm embarrassed. So I go to her timeline, and the very first thing that she put in her Facebook feed was this. This was the last post she made. She said this. She said, my greatest joy in life is helping those who cannot help themselves. And I thought, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. How do we do that without money? I mean, sometimes when you want to give something to somebody, they need money, don't they? They need a hand up. They need something substantial. And so we're talking to you about sales, and I'm about to give you a couple of sales ideas. But the reality is, one of the ways that we help people is we have the capacity to give something to them because we are profitable and our business is growing. Do y'all agree? Right. And there's nothing better for a business than a profitable sale. I put profitable in front of that, right? I mean, if you want, I can teach you how to discount and sell a loss. That's easy, right? No, we're going to talk about how to make profitable sales. And so then I went back to the timeline in Ziglar, and there's, these 40 people have commented, now 60, now 80. And then this lady who made the original comment, she came back to the timeline, and this is what she put in. I just want everybody to know that I apologize. Zig Ziglar is the real deal. I researched you. Thank you for letting me know. Now, why do you think she said that? This is what I love about Ziglarites. Or I like Ziglets better. I'm a Zigler. We can make a song, couldn't we? I'm a Zigler, you're a Zigler. The reason that she came back and left that positive comment is because all of our people, when they were responding to her, it was out of love. It was like, hey, have you ever heard Zig Ziglar? Do you know what he stands for? They could have easily trolled her back, but they didn't. Did you know that trolling someone never works? It's a lose-lose. So that's why I love our fan base. And why is that? Because your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. This is about a choice. It's about an attitude. Our attitude is the outward expression of our behavior. It's how we change the environment. It's how when we talk to somebody, we look them in the eye, we connect with them, and we say, hey, you matter, you make a difference. That's what eye contact means. I love the idea that we have the choice of our attitude. And I was sitting in that airline waiting for my plane, having 4 extra hours. I could have had a pity party. I could have texted everybody. You're not going to believe this. And then they rubbed Morton salt in my wound by saying they're going to pay somebody else $330. No! I had a choice to make. Let's change the atmosphere right now, right here with the people that's in front of us. I was speaking in Australia, and this guy raised his hand right before the break. And he asked me a question I'd never heard before. What is the fastest way to success? I've heard questions like, hey, what do successful people do? And what are 3 things that I can do to be more successful? This guy just cut to the chase. What is the fastest way to success? So I want to ask a question of you guys. Should I share with you the answer, or should we skip that? Do you want the long way, the hard way, or the fastest way? Let's talk about the fastest way. I didn't say easy. You ready? Here it is. So out of my mouth, this popped out. I was deer in the headlights. Anybody ever been deer in the headlights in front of the room? I was like. And then after a couple of seconds, I said this. The fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits. That's it. That is it. And I've done more research on this, more study. I spent more hours on planes talking about this, every area of life. life? And I'm here to tell you, this is the way it is. And so when you talk about sales and you're talking about growing your business and increasing revenue, the fastest way to get the up is to figure out what are a few small bad habits that you have that you could replace with a few small good habits. And then you start building on it. So I want to share with you 2 habits. In our mental life, this is one of the spokes of the wheel. There's 7 spokes on the wheel that we teach: mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, and career. The mental spoke of the wheel, the mental life, how we think, what we believe, our thoughts, the things that really determine what we're going to follow through with. The number 1 habit is this: it's choosing your input. When you choose the right input, it changes everything. If you want to choose to increase your sales, you choose the right input. When the input starts to happen, the actions follow. If you don't choose the right input and you go take action, guess what you're going to get? The same results you've been getting. Anybody want to get better results? Okay. So here's the principle behind it. What you feed your mind determines your appetite. And this is such a basic, simple concept. What we put in our mind, what we focus on, that feeds our appetite to where we want more of that. When we start learning a little bit about how to be a better husband, a better wife, how to grow a business, how to increase sales, whatever it is, when we start putting that in and we start getting some feedback and we start feeling our foundation growing, then we want more of it. We get on a roll. Anybody ever had that roll before? By the way, do you know how you can tell when you're on a roll? When you got butter on your knees. Come on, Josh. So Mark calls me up. I'm about to bring Mark up. He calls me up and he says, "Hey Tom, Kevin's working with this company called Garden Light. You're gonna love Michelle." So I talked to Michelle. Came out here for a conference, and while I was here, Michelle says, "Hey, you need to go meet Rito and go over to our offices." And the next thing I know, here I am. And then a few weeks ago, Michelle says, "You know what? I bet your house could look better." And I'm like, "What do you have in mind?" "Oh, we just wanted to learn about our company and what we do. And, if you saw a demo, it would just be unbelievable." And so this guy named Taylor calls me up and he says, we're doing the email exchange, and he says, "Hey, I want to come out to your house." And I go, "Okay, what time do you want to be there?" And he says, "Well, it only takes about 25, 30 minutes to set it up. And I'm going to get into the neighborhood about 30 minutes early. I'm going to go to the Starbucks and blah, 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 and I'll come over and set it up." So he comes over. So I come out, he's like educating me on what we do here at Garden Light, what you guys do every day, how you change lives and how you change the whole look of a house. And he's showing me the technical stuff. And then he says, "Ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Okay, boom, there it is. So there's the house and the demo kit, right? And it's like, I'm going to text that to my wife right now. What do you think? You don't know she's really the buyer of the house, right? And so we get to talking, and I say to him, I say, "Hey, this is awesome. So you do this job," and I said, "Do you guys ever get price objections?" Do y'all? Price objections. People ever say, "That's too much money"? And so I said, "How do you handle it?" So he gave me some good ideas, and so I just pulled a close right out of the vault, the secrets of closing the sale, the masterclass, something that this close has probably made more money than any close ever. How do you handle the price objection? So here's what it was. I said, now you only give this close after you've explained the value, you've done the demonstration, they know the warranty, they know the benefits, they know your service, they understand it's an experience, they understand your top of the line, they've got everything. And then you show them the investment, and they say it costs too much. And so I went over it. So before I tell you what that close is, Taylor, do you mind standing up? Because you told me the next day?
The next morning.
The next morning, you used this close.
I did.
And so, what happened?
So, a little backstory. Went to this property, very large property, but if anybody's ever dealt with a property manager that manages a property for a very wealthy person, they are the biggest gatekeeper. right? They guard that homeowner like crazy. You don't even know the guy's name. So I know going into it, it's going to be a hard sell. Or even get to close that day. And we went over 43 different trees on this estate. And I gave him the price, about $39,000. And he said, you know, I like your stuff. You have a that's just a lot of money. I can't go to my guy with that. I said, I understand. I said, but you agree with the value and all and everything. I explained this. I bet you're the best company in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. But, and I said, but here's the deal. And I gave him the quote, which I'll let you tell it. And he looked at me and he paused. And this is one of the biggest rednecks that I've leased taxes I've ever met. And he goes, you've got my business. Where do I write the check? And thanks to Tom and that close is what saved myself at that point in time.
Awesome. What we can do,
Taylor.
yeah, 39,000. That's like, so we're high-fiving when we saw each other Sunday night or yesterday. Yeah. So he tells me the story, and so I thought I would show you the close real quickly, but we're out of time, so. Okay, so get your camera out, take a picture of that. He said it verbatim, okay, so here it is, and I want you to listen to my voice inflection a little bit. Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect, whoever it is, our company decided many years ago to explain the investment. We didn't say cost or price, we said investment. Why? You get a return on investment. One time, rather than to apologize for poor quality and service over and over again. And I bet you are glad we made that decision, aren't you? You finish it with a question, now it's the responsibility of the redneck. Because now he's got a choice, right? He's got, I want good quality and service. That's what you sold. You sold an experience. And he said yes. Now this also leaves you open for scope. Let's just say they come back and they say, man, I'm 39,000, my budget's 35. Well, guess what you can do? You can still meet that without devaluing your product. You can take a few of the lights out. You can change the scope a little bit. I want to close up with this. The second choice that you want to make has to do with your character and integrity. It's the spiritual side of your life. It's the intangibles. It's the non-physical. It's what people see in you. It's trust. The quote here is, trust is the byproduct of integrity. In the book, Secrets of Closing the Sale, Dad said there are 5 reasons that people don't buy. No need, write this down. There's 5 reasons that people don't buy. No need, no money, no want, no hurry, and no trust. The biggest of these is trust. No need, no money, no want, no hurry, no trust. If we can establish trust, the hard part is over. Anybody heard of Seth Godin?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Like one of the premier marketing gurus. We're good friends with Seth. He was in our offices. We were doing some things together. And he had written this thing called the Scalability of Trust. Now, what you may not know about Seth is that early in his life, he built his company by listening to Ziglar audio 2 to 3 hours every single day. I have him on tape. He said you've never heard of Seth Godin if it hadn't been for Ziglar. And one of the programs he listened to over and over and over again was Secrets of Closing the Sale. And this is what he told me. I said, Seth, what is the scalability of trust? Here is his business focus. In every interaction, whether it's email, phone call, face-to-face, internet marketing, doesn't matter. My goal is to scale trust. I want them to have more trust after the interaction than before it. He says, because when I have their trust, all I need then is the solution to their problem. The rest is done. What are you doing in your business on a daily basis to scale trust? With yourself when you look in the mirror, with your team as you develop them, and with your clients and prospects as you go out. What are you doing to scale trust? So here's the reality. The choice is yours. Joe Saba said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. What an affirmation this is. Man was designed, woman was designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness. We got some exciting things. Mark, I want to give you a 30-second heads up. Mark's coming up. Mark is over our Zigler family. He has led the partnership that we have with Kevin Harrington, and we've spent countless hours. I can't even tell you how many hours putting together what we feel like is one of the most incredible programs, the Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass. What did we look for first when we said, do we want to partner? Was it somebody with a big brand? Was it somebody with a lot of reach? Trust. Trust. It goes back to integrity. So Mark, if you want to come on up, I will turn it over to you. Mark, Timm.
Yep. Hey, give that to Ziglar. I'll tell you, it's not very often, not very often at all, that you get Kevin Harrington and Tom Zigler at an event. So Michelle definitely has some contacts. So I get the opportunity to kind of bring this all full circle here, and you've received the content that's in our masterclass. And as Tom said, I want to paint a little picture for you, because this is how this all went down. My background is actually, I had a very successful Amazon company, ranked number 23 in the world and selling on Amazon 60,000 products. Before I met the children of Zig Ziglar, Tom and his sisters, and decided to help them extend Zig Ziglar's legacy, because that is me, a younger version of me right there. And so I actually got the opportunity to have Zig Ziglar, Tom's father, as my mentor when I was 19 years old. Who would have liked to have had Zig Ziglar as your mentor when you were 19 years old? Needless to say, it made a profound difference in my life. And so, so here I am. I'm having some success in Amazon. I'm doing some business with Tom and his sisters. And so we decided we would help them out, and we would take over all of their physical product distribution, because we were good at that. So they had this warehouse that was about 35 years old, and they packed up this entire warehouse in a semi-trailer and shipped it to Indiana. And I told my team there might be some stuff in there that's a little old. And I said, we're not going to throw anything away. We want to evaluate all of it. And I said, but, for the most part, organize it. So we get all these skids of product in. My warehouse manager calls and says, hey, there's these, you said there might be some old stuff in here, but there's these tapes, and there's just like a lot of them. And I'm like, well, what do they look like? And they're like, they look like about an 8 by 10 size. And, it's like, I don't even know what they would play in. And I said, so, I'm like, well, what do they say on them? And she's like, that's the weirdest thing. They all say the exact same thing. And I'm like, well, what is it? And they go, they all have this big orange sticker on them that says Master. In Tom's father's contract was that every speech that he did, they had to do a high res, as high as you could get, which in the day was a beta. That's what those tapes were. And it was a master. Now, imagine how many speeches that Zig Ziglar did, and how many masters came in. And when they'd fill up a box, they'd send it to the warehouse. And they'd fill up a box, they'd send it to the warehouse. And what showed up on my dock was over 1,000 masters, betas, that unless you were sitting in that audience, have never been seen by the human eye. So we were able to go through that, and we started going through a very extensive process and baking it and turning it in, digitizing it. And we found this one box of all the tapes of an entire series called Secrets of Successful Selling. And it was Zig Ziglar actually teaching the secrets of closing the sale to a Fortune 500 company. And thank goodness, only 1 out of 2 of these tapes are even saleable. That's the odds, because they weren't stored properly. But all 7 of these tapes we were able to save. So when we talk about the Secrets of Successful Selling Masterclass, it actually is content that was taught by Tom's father, then put through the lenses of Kevin Harrington. And he took what he learned in his life to do $5 billion in sales. So you learn from the master, and then you turn around and learn from the master's protege. and you see what he did with it, and then you see what you can do with it. So I tell you that because you all raised your hand and said you'd like to have Zig Ziglar as a mentor when you were 19. How would you like to have Kevin Harrington as a mentor right now in your business? Anybody? Yep. So how cool would it be if you can have Kevin Harrington and Zig Ziglar as mentors? Because the neat thing about Kevin's story is Zig Ziglar profoundly impacted his life. He never met Tom's father, not in person. But he met him over and over and over again through the content that he consumed. And that's what I love. Kyle, where's Kyle? So Kyle asked me a question. I'm sitting right up here behind the camera. And he asked me a question, are leaders born? Okay, or do they become? And I'm here to tell you that Zig Ziglar would stand up here and say that you were born to win. Every one of you, regardless of race, creed, color, background, parents, geography, every single person here was born to win. Because the great equalizer in life is right up here. That's the beauty of being a human being, is that you all have something right between your ears that equalizes you to anybody in any circumstance. And he said you can change who you are and where you are by changing one thing: what you put into your mind. What you choose to consume, the content you choose to consume, will absolutely determine where you go in life, how you get there, and the impact that you have. So you can have Kevin and Zig as mentors through our masterclass, because you literally are learning from the masters. So much teaching today that you have available to you is a copy of a copy of a copy. Somebody reads a book, they decide to do a class on it, now you're learning from a copy. Worse yet, you can be learning from a copy of a copy. We want to give you access to Tom's father, to Zig Ziglar, to Kevin Harrington through this program. What ends up happening is it's not a masterclass, it's a behavioral transformation. Behavioral transformations are not one-time learning events. They last a lifetime. They have no expiration date. They never go out of fashion. Once you change your behavior, everything changes. That's what Tom Ziglar was up here talking about. That's what Kevin was up here talking about. This is not a flash in the pan. Okay? This is about changing the way you think, changing the way you approach things. This is about changing everything in how you approach your customers, how you approach your business. That's the kind of change that takes place, and you don't look back at that point. It's not a blip. It would mean that you get insight and understanding for strategically connecting with your prospect, discovering their needs, know how to show them the path to get what they want, and you get the confidence to introduce your product, the best product in the marketplace, and service in the most powerful light. And the cool part is that anyone can do it. This is not reserved for the uber rich. This is not reserved for the, quote, born salesman, although we do have one born salesman in the room. Every single person can do this. It doesn't have to do with how much money you have or whether or not you're into sales, not into sales. That's the beauty. We know that anybody that has a product like you guys have, and you have a superior product, the only thing standing in the way, and here's the coolest part, okay? People need your product. That's the coolest part of your job. You actually offer something that people need. People, you look at it and say, well, they just want it. It's just a want. So they need it. It's all a perspective, okay? They made the biggest investment of their life, and now they want to make an additional investment. They just need your help to know which investment that is to make. And so Tom gave you such a great close. And we go through, do you know that Zig Ziglar had over 100 closes in the secrets of closing a sale? I'm here to tell you that some of you are probably very good at sales. The average person that's in the selling field knows 2 to 3 closes. And Zig taught over 100. But the average high-ticket sale, and you are in the high-ticket business, happens after the 7th close. What a shame is that if you're standing there and you're 2 closes away from a $39,000 sale and you come up too short because you don't know the closes. You don't know what you need to be able to make that sale happen. So anyone can do it. And in fact, here's one of our students that went through this program, and she happens to have a plumbing business. And so I thought it might be really appropriate to you to hear from Stephanie and the impact that this had on.
I'm Stephanie Robbins, and I am the president of Robbins Plumbing. Our team was struggling with sales, and not just our ticket volume, but presenting options to clients that would permanently solve their problem. And I was looking and looking and looking for something that would teach them the value of sales and the service that it would bring to our clients. So I was actually listening to the Ziglar podcast, and I heard Kevin Harrington on there talking about the secrets of the masterclass. This was what I was looking for. It was something that I could share with my team, that we could duplicate, we could all do together. The course is segmented in chapters, and then inside those chapters is mini videos. So it's not overwhelming. You actually get to take it in step by step, and it's all perfectly aligned for someone who's coming in and feels a rejection, a resistance to sales. It baby steps them into who they are, what their own objections are, and overcoming those so that then they can overcome the objection of the client. These techniques have made a huge impact in my business for company culture and morale. The biggest hit, of course, we've been financially impacted by better sales and higher volume of sales per ticket. But the biggest impact, honestly, is the confidence of my team. If someone came to me and asked, why this program? Why should I choose this program over others? It's foolproof in my professional opinion, and I've seen the results in my team. I've seen the results in my clients. I've seen the results in our sales. I would want to say to any business owner, especially in a service company, it's your responsibility to train your team, because your clients are the ones who are suffering for it. You have to be the one who knows everything. Put the tools in front of your team, and this is an amazing tool to do that. It's a win for my customers, and then ultimately it's a win for the company at that point. So I'd highly recommend this course to anyone who wants to improve their customers' experience.
Cool. We've got a lot of students in the service industry, the product industry, that have come through this course. Now, this is a very big slide with a lot of words on it, and I thought, how can I, rather than go down through and break down every little thing that's taught in there, it would be so much better to have somebody come up and actually, we've got live people in the room. So before we even got to the point, I did a private training with Michelle and her team. And so Maria, would you mind coming up here real quick? So Maria's actually been through the course. And so I'm gonna let Mario share his experience of just being in the course, what it's been like, what's your experience been in there, and just a couple things you got.
Okay, I did start it for myself, because obviously we all want to do, we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to be business owners. But as I started to watch it, I started to understand the value of the integrity, the words, the solutions that they were presenting on the problem that they were having. And I understood this was very listening, becoming a better salesperson. So I started to talk to my kids about reading sales books, things like that, because whatever they want to do, they're going to have to sell. If it's dentistry, doctor, you're going to have to sell. If you get a girlfriend, you get a wife, you're going to have to learn how to sell yourself. So I started to tell my kids that they hate reading books. They would never read them with me. I'd read them to them. They'd be doing other things. And once I started watching these videos, it clicked, and I said I can make them watch these videos. So in the car at home, I started having them watch these videos. And within 2 to 3 weeks, I could see a change in them. They were actually interested in it. They were learning from it, and it helps them. It's something we can do together. They're not hearing it from me. They're getting to see it. They're getting to see old school videos from like the 1970s or where they're from. And it's just fun to kind of look at that. But they're engaged, and I can absolutely see the difference in their confidence and the words that he used, the integrity, they're not selling the solutions. And I love using that now, because it's a solution that you're providing. And I definitely learned a lot. And more importantly, for your employees, to have them watching, like she said. But for me, it's my kids. And that's what I want to do. I want to change the world with legacy, and I'm able to use these to show them. And I've seen a change. And within months, they're different. So
that's awesome. I brought Mario up here to talk about the course instead of me going through those walls, because I got something out of that. It reminded me, I'm sitting here, I'm going through and I'm watching some of the videos getting ready for to create the masterclass. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she would consider herself, if you said salesman, she would consider that on that side of the room, she would be on that far wall over there. But she got sucked in to Ziglar talking about selling and about how it's the most noble profession that there ever is, that it's honorable, that you're doing a disservice to people if you don't offer your goods or service to them when they need it, and talked about how America is the country that we have because we have the best salespeople ever. And so, think about George Washington. He tells us a great bit about George Washington. Here's a guy, who's got this, ragtag militia. trying to sign people up to go against the world superpower. And basically his pitch is, sign here with me, and I'm not going to pay you. And if we lose, you get hung. But if we win, you're free. Where do I sign? Okay? But clearly he sold that vision, and he sold it in a way that obviously we wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for him or Christopher Columbus or Martin Luther King or all these wonderful, amazing people that were actually phenomenal salespeople. And so here's my wife listening to all of this, and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm insane. I go, what do you mean? She goes, I think I have to sell more than you every day. I got to sell the kids to get up. I got to sell them to get ready in time for school. I got to sell them to eat breakfast. I got to sell them to eat dinner. I got to sell them to eat their vegetables. All I do all day is sell. So you hit the nail on the head over here. Nothing happens in this world without selling. And so the difference between someone who is very good at it and someone who really struggles with it is just understanding that there is methodology, that there are ways to close the sale and have unbelievable relationships. So I thought what I would also do is, Kevin Harrington is still here. Okay, I'm going to put Kevin on the spot. My favorite module of all the modules that we have is vault number 5 called the Closers Collection. Kevin, would you come up here for a second? All right. So Kevin teaches this, and how this works when he says, oh, you know, seeing Zig. So what we did is we actually bought a TV set from 1985. And we had this TV set, and it was on the set when we shot the course, and Kevin would be next to the TV set. And so Secrets of Closing the Sale came out in 1985. So we would show Zig on the 1985 TV set, showing him teaching one of these elements, and then it would cut off. And then Kevin would actually, you know, teach and bring it to today's terms and how he has applied it today and what he's done. So in Vault 5, it's the Closers Collection. We don't teach all 100 closes, but we teach 40. Okay, so I told you, you guys need to know, to be ready with 6 or 7 on a high ticket sale, you need to know at least 20. Okay? Because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. It's not going to be a perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you got to know at least 20. So we chose 40. So, Kevin Harrington. I picked some of my favorite closes. So I'm going to put Kevin on the spot. I'm going to pick the close. And then I need you, Kevin, to tell us give us an example of how you use this close in your life. Okay, so give us an example of how you used it, and because you know this, and you've been impacted by this industry, if you can relate that close to maybe their world a little bit, that would be awesome. So how did you use it, and how can they use it? So, you think you can do this? All right. So, all right. Close number 1. And this one's perfect for these guys. Magical transformation.
Well, that's a beautiful one because it's worked for many, many infomercials. If you think of proactive skincare, Guthrie Rinker did that, but that's, you know, before and after skin, acne, no acne. But Tony Little, we used it from 180 pounds to 120 pounds. Magical transformation. Beautiful success. But I started doing it way back in the early days when I was doing driveway sealing. I actually took a picture of the driveway before and the driveway after. And that was very powerful because people, I was 15 years old, and they looked at me like, you know, can you really do this? I'm like, see the driveway across the street, well, here's the before and here's the after. And I remember when Corey came to my house, by the way, and put the lights on and came out for the reveal, I said to Corey, can we keep these lights here? Because I didn't. Magical transformation. That was magical transformation, and I didn't want him to leave with the lights because that was just a demo. We could take off, right? But no, magical transformation is powerful. It works, and this is a great industry for magical transformation.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so a close that I love as well, and you're one of the best people I've ever seen do this, and it's the new decision close. The new decision close. Let's see, I think there we go.
Okay.
The new decision close.
Do you have a picture of the driveway?
Yeah. Oh, I did. I want Yep, there you go.
There we go. So there's, yeah, so that's obviously mentioned.
Yep.
Okay. So the second close is new decision. And I remember when I first was knocking on doors, people, and I had no appointment, it was just cold call, right? But I could see their driveway, and I could see, you know, what they needed and what problems I could help them solve. So people would, oh, I'm busy, I'm eating dinner, they got us at a bad time, come back, you know, another time, which they really meant never come back, right? And so I don't have time, I'm not interested in buying whatever it is you're selling. People would get nasty, right? As a kid, I was kind of like learning how to do this, but I said sometimes the people that were so quick to say no, it showed me they were a decision maker. And so that meant now I just had to give them some new information so they could make a new decision. And in the case of the drive, you know, the guy slamming the door, and I'm like, hey, look, I understand, no problem. Just, you see that crack right there? Water's going to get in there, freeze, it's going to triple the size of the crack. I can tell you all about that some other time, right? And well, what are you talking about? And then I, you know, so give them new information, what it is I can do, and then I could grab, well, come on, let me show you where that, you know, I saw a bunch of these cracks and how we can protect and beautify, and again, solve their problem, right? So that was in the early days, but I think you've got W.H. Smith on there. So we were running, we had 100 infomercials running, Tony Little, Jack LaLanne, George Foreman in the United States. And I said to myself, we spent all this money producing the show, manufacturing the product, the toolings, in some cases we had millions of dollars invested in these projects. And they were a bell-shaped curve in terms of success. The Tony Little Gazelle, it would go on the air, it would, for 18 months, it would just sell, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then it would hit a point, and then it would die. Just like the movie. The movie comes out, it's in the theaters, it's everywhere, you hear about it, it's got a buzz, and then it's dead. What do they do with movies? They take them international. They go to England, Germany, Holland, Japan, etc. So I said, I wonder if I can do that with infomercials. I went over, I said, the first place to start would be England, because it's the same language. So I went over to England, and there was a channel, 2 channels up on satellite, like the cable here in the US, they were satellite over there. And W.H. Smith, which they own thousands of airport newspaper stands. Has anyone ever seen W.H. Smith in the airports? So that was their business. How they got into owning TV channels, I'm not sure. But I went in and talked to them about running my infomercials. And so I said, hey, I've got this library, I'm going to come to England. And I met with one of the top guys in the company, and he says, hey, let me just tell you something. He said, not only don't we don't run 30, forget about these 30-minute commercials you're talking about, we don't even run 30-second commercials on BBC One and BBC Two. And on Channel 3 and Channel 4, you never, ever get these infomercials. Go home, never come back. And by the way, they're offensive. We don't like that aggressive selling style. I mean, literally threw me out the door. And so I was very disappointed, obviously, because I had this huge asset of all these shows. So I went back home and I did some research on W.H. Smith Television. I found out in their newsstands, they make, these things do $300,000 to $500,000 in revenue annually. By the way, W.H. Smith W.H. Smith was a public company, so I had all their numbers, and I could see that they were making an average profit of about, I forget the exact number, but let's call it $50,000 per store that they opened. And so what I did was I calculated how many eyeballs they had, the number of eyeballs we would get to in the U.S., and the equivalent numbers that we would project. And we were projecting to do on the amount of time that they had that was unused. Because, by the way, they shut off at 6 p.m. in the evening because they didn't want to compete against the BBC News. So from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m., 12 hours a day, this channel was dark. And they had 2 channels. So, to make a long story short, I said I could give these guys as much as, probably 6 to 10 million a year in income to give me the time on the channel. And that equated to hundreds of their stores, so in profit. So I got another meeting to go back, and I said, look, you guys are a public company. If I gave you the equivalent of a couple hundred stores worth of profit, give or take, and I don't know how the math figures out, but it was something like that, and would that be of interest to you? And now that I'm talking public company, they're a public company, they have to take this into consideration at a really important level. But I'm going to walk in, write them. I gave them a $500,000 check up front as a deposit against this. Now they had new information they had to take to the board, and the board, they're a bunch of finance guys. They came back and said, let's give this guy a shot. And so they came back. We ended up giving them more than $10 million the first year out, and this thing took off all around. That was our first entrance into infomercials outside the U.S. We went then from England into all the rest of mainland Europe, into Middle East, Latin America, Asia. But it was giving them the new information that it's not just about me giving you some shows. I'm going to give you millions of dollars, and now you need to present this to the board. So that was the new decision close.
I love that close, but I also love Kevin's perspective. I mean, I literally have watched this man receive, hundreds of pitches and even give hundreds of pitches. And the thing about it is that after the success that he's had and, the way he approaches things, if he's sitting across from somebody and he gets a no, he doesn't know it, but it's poker tell. He gets a little smirk that comes right out of his teeth because he knows how close he is to a yes. Because a no is only this far from a yes. A maybe is this far, and I don't know is this far, and I have no clue is this far. The only person you can't sell to is someone who can't make a decision. But if they can make a decision, that no can become a yes very quickly. So the next time you're out there and you make a presentation and you get a no, that's the thing that everybody fears. I don't want to get a no. I'll sell past the close to not get a no. But a really, really, really talented, somebody who really knows what they're doing, they actually sell into that no. They get the no so they know where they stand. And the next time you get a no, I just want you to get a little smirk right up there into your cheek. And I want you to think of Kevin Harrington because you know that you are very close to making an awesome sale. So do not fear the no. All they need at that point is more information, or they need to understand the value. So they just need, and even the value is just more information. All right, I know we're going a little over on time, so I'm going to go. Let's do. I want you to do this one. You talked about Arnold Morris earlier, but there's something about your Arnold Morris story that you didn't tell, and this is actually called the character close. And Ziglar actually has a great way of talking about this. I'll save that because I want to hear your perspective on the character close first, Kevin. Then I'll share what Zig talks about.
So when I first met Arnold, he literally was doing that same pitch all day long, 8 days in a row before he had to go back to the next stop, the Iowa State Fair, wherever it was. And I said to myself, Arnold, I said, how, if I were sitting in your shoes, what would I try to do? And so this is, again, I was thinking of solving Arnold's problem, being away from his family, having to go on the road, travel 40 weeks a year. And then at the same time, I was thinking about the income opportunity of filming him and film it one time and put it on the Discovery Channel, which is what we ended up doing. But when I cut that deal with Arnold, because I really was, when I started talking to him, I said, I can show you a way that you could sell far more knives than you're selling without ever having to leave your home. And that's when he was like, wow, how would that even be possible, right? So once that took place and it was working for Arnold and he was making money, literally getting the big royalty checks, that's when Arnold said, by the way, I need to turn you on to some other folks that I know, if we have a little deal that I can get compensated. And I said, absolutely. And that's when he started opening the floodgates. Billy Mays, Wally Nash had a Chinese walk. And Billy had actually an automotive product right before OxyClean. And then Sandy Mason and John Parkin. John Parkin was a little guy with a bow tie and he sold car waxes. And Arnold just said, Kevin, you have changed my life. You have helped me, and you have put me out there. He says, now I want this to happen for everybody that I know. And literally, Arnold would call me every week, every month, whatever it was. And the story that you might have been referring to, Mark, was Arnold lived till he was just about 5 years ago. He was about 90 years old. And his wife called me, and she said, Kevin, he's in his last days, and I want you to talk to Arnold. And you really, it would really mean a lot. And so I get on the phone with Arnold. He said, Kevin, he said, I've got another deal. There he is. Like, this is 30-some years after we met, but he never forgot, and he just loved to keep bringing me deals. And we never got a chance to follow up, and he died a few days later, but God bless him. He was an amazing man.
But that's the character close, because that is where Kevin made one sale, Arnold, and then Arnold made, Arnold brought you billions.
We had 24 of these presenters from the home. Anthony Sullivan was one of them, who just had his 50th birthday here in town, the OxyClean guy now.
So what's so significant about this for all of you is that you can do advertising, you can run spreads in papers, you can do Facebook advertising, you can get leads. But come on, the power of a referral, the power of a testimony, the power of someone else sitting there when you're not around and saying, if you're even thinking about outdoor lighting, there is only one person that you call. Only one. And that is the character close. And that is one that takes time, it's integrity, it's character, but it will get you more business over the course of your career than any other close tactic that you can get. Tom's father, Zig, used to tell a story about buying a brand new Cadillac. When he got a little success under his belt, he decided he was going to buy a Cadillac, and I'll make this a quick one. And he asked everybody about buying a Cadillac, and everybody says there's only one person that you buy this Cadillac from. So when it came time to buy the Cadillac, he walked in and he said, I'm going to buy this Cadillac, and I want it right there. This is the one I want. Where do I sign? He's like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm going to show you about this. Let me tell you, you don't need to show me anything. I've already been to 3 other dealerships. I know everything there is to know about them. And he said, I'm here to buy that Cadillac. And he said, well, this is the fastest sale I've ever made. He said, what do you mean it's the fastest sale you've ever made? He's like, well, you're ready to sign right now. He just walked in here. And he said, well, how long have you been selling? He said, 20 years. He said, you've been selling me for 20 years. Because there's only one person in this town that I'm going to buy this Cadillac from, and it's you. I went to all the other dealerships. I found the car. I found the color. I found every bell and whistle. But you started selling me 20 years ago when you decided to be someone of integrity and character. So let's get this deal done. So that's the character close, and that is absolutely something that every single one of you can deploy and are in control of, and that should be an aspiration that you have for every close. All right, one more quick one. I love this one, and so, a little timely, Kevin has his own Donald Trump story, and it's one of my absolute favorites, but it's called the preparation close. Now, do not underestimate the power of this close and the impact that it can have on your business. All right, Kevin.
Yeah. So, nothing to do with politics. This is 30 years ago, 1988. Donald Trump's book had just come out with The Art of the Deal. And we were running an infomercial at the time that was how to make money in real estate. And to this day, 30 years later, there's still infomercials running on how to make money in real estate. But one of the guys in our office said, Kevin, this real estate program you're running is a no-name guy. Who would believe anything that this person has to say? And why don't you, I'm going to challenge you to go get somebody like Donald Trump, because he's the biggest in real estate in the United States. Why don't you do that? So that was the challenge to me.
Now, if memory serves you correctly, you didn't have much time. You had to get in front of him in
I said, you got a week.
1 week's time.
1 week to get in front
1
of
week to get in front of Donald Trump.
Give him a pitch. And so I took the challenge, I lived in Philadelphia at the time, and Trump was in New York. But the first thing I tried was to call his office and get a hold of the secretary and see if I could get, my guarantee to my staff was that I can get a meeting with Donald Trump in 1 week. And so I didn't expect to get through calling the secretary. She basically said, no thanks, right? No meeting, it's not going to happen. So I said to myself, okay, I got to do some preparation. How do I get in front of Trump? So we were, the kind of success we were having, we could easily sell 1 million of something. In fact, some of the things we did sold 2 million, 5 million, 10 million pieces. So I said, wait, he just came out with his book. The co-author of his book gets a royalty on every book sold. So he was easy to get a hold of. His name is Tony Schwartz. In fact, Tony Schwartz hates Donald Trump to this day. He goes against him on the news all the time. But Tony, I got a hold of Tony. He was the easy guy to track down. I said, Tony, let me ask you a question. I said, I do a lot of these ads, even TV kinds of things. Would it be possible to get about 1 million of Donald Trump's books? And he's like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Do the math on the royalty breakdown.
He's gonna, he's probably making $2 a book, right? Tony himself. So he's like, well, where would you need 1 million of these books? I said, well, I mean, have you ever seen this, How to Make Money in a Real Estate program? Well, that's me, but Donald Trump blows that guy away. Why don't we put Donald Trump in a TV spot to show people how to make money in real estate? And so he's like, hey, I like that idea. Let me get back to it. So literally called me back about 3 hours later, and this was like a Tuesday, day 2 into my week, and he says, can you come to New York on Thursday? Okay? And I'm like, what, I lived in Philly, so it's a train ride up. And I said, yeah, I can make it up. What are we going to do? He said, you're going to meet Donald Trump himself. And so now we now had the meeting set. I get to the Trump Tower, and I'm sitting, go up the tower, and I'm sitting there in front of the hostess. As I get off the elevator, there's the hostess, receptionist, and she says, take a seat. She says, he's busy right now, but we'll see what we can do. And so, little did I know that his office was right off of the reception area. His door was open. He's talking to people on the phone as I'm sitting there. And he's not just talking, he's yelling and screaming. I told you gold handles, boom. And from there, and then he was literally beating up on person after person. And I'm looking over at her, and she's like, oh, you're next. Okay? This isn't going so good, So I go, she finally, I hear her say, hey, someone's here to pitch me something. Where is that kid? Get him in here. I only got a minute. So I go walking in, and I go to sit down in the chair that's sitting in front of his desk. He says, wait a minute. He says, you're not sitting down in that chair. He said, I want to know. He said, you're here to pitch me something. I said, yes, sir. He said, I want to know, if I said yes, how much of my time is this going to take? And what's my upside? Because if you don't have the right answer, you can turn around and get the hell out of my office. Okay? And so I had to think real quick, but I said, I'm going to need, if you said yes today, 2-3 months from now, whatever works for your schedule, if you gave me 4 hours, I can pay you $4 million. I said, sit down. And I did. And I got 1 hour with Donald Trump, and he said yes. But when we got in with the lawyers, they kind of limited how much time he was going to spend on the show and this and that. So we ended up never doing the deal. I could have done the deal. But we got in, I got in front of it within 3 or 4 days, made the pitch, he bid on the pitch, and I think I'm glad I didn't do the deal.
I think you're right. But the bottom line is that you were prepared. Okay, you were prepared. You knew what the opportunity was. You were prepared, and especially prepared when he put you right on the spot. So don't underestimate the value of preparation. Okay, don't just walk into an opportunity. You don't know. You may think it's a $10,000 sale, and it could be a $40,000 sale. Be prepared. Be ready. Okay, when your time comes, every one of us get tapped on the shoulder in the work that we do. Are we ready? Are we prepared? So preparation is the key. I'm going to go ahead. Kevin, I'm going to keep you up here for just a second, and I'm actually going to call on Tom here in a minute too and have you join. So I'm giving you notice, Tom. All right. And so here's the deal. Michelle asked us if we would not only come and deliver some of the content that we have, but if we would actually make it available to you. This is something that we actually only do once a year. We open up and we take students into this class. It's getting ready to happen in just a couple weeks. We open it up to the world, and we let students come into it, and then we just pour everything we've got into it and make sure that everybody crushes it in 2019. So what you get when you get involved with the Secrets of Successful Selling Masterclass is the 7 vaults that I went through earlier that Mario was talking about. You get to see, we just went through 4 closes. There's 40 closes in there. So if you enjoyed those 4, there's 40 in there where you've got Zig talking about the close and then Kevin talking about how he used the close in his life. So we just gave you a real live clip, from the masterclass. And then you get access to our members-only community.
I think there's 28 videos of Zig and 28 videos of me.
In that,
7 vaults.
Yep. In the 7 vaults, there's 28 different videos. It's like 8 or 9 hours long of teaching, the content. And Tom was kind enough to share some of the content up here as well. So you've been seeing it live, here. So you get access to 4 live group coaching calls with Kevin Harrington. So we call it Ask Kevin Anything, where people actually get to ask and he comes on live. $5,000 in additional bonus trainings. We've got trainings from Tom in there and his top performance formula. We've got additional trainings from Kevin inside of there. Mentorship from Kevin, from Michelle Prince, from Zig Ziglar, from myself, from Tom, all inside of this masterclass. And so you'll see it in 2 weeks. You'll see it all over the internet because we're opening up the class for $1,999. That's how much we sell it for. We do not discount it at all. You'll see it on there. That's the only way you can get it. However, Michelle asked if we could do something special for you guys. So at this event, and only at this event, if you don't take advantage of it here, you will buy it if you want to buy it later for $19.99. But we're doing like a $500, coupon, or just for being at this event, part of offsetting your time here. And so for $14.99, you simply go to zigsecrets.com/DC. Okay, zigsecrets.com/DC for Dealer Congress. And then we also, Michelle asked if we could do something cool. We have gotten involved with a really cool piece of technology that actually allows you to decide how much you want to pay on a monthly basis. It's called Split It. So if you go to that URL, if you go to zigsecrets.com/DC and you want to do a monthly amount, there's no interest or fees and no credit check. You decide between 2 months and 12 months. It's totally up to you, whatever fits your budget, whatever works for you, for your business, you decide. 2 months to 12 months, and you decide. It's called Split It, and it's a super cool new piece of technology. There's all kinds of funding mechanisms and PayPal and all of this, but they check your credit. They have gargantuan interest rates after a few months. That's not what this is. It's actually Split It. Now, how it works is it's only Visa and MasterCard, not American Express. So only Visa and only MasterCard. That's one of the catches right now. So if you want to use the monthly amount, you want to choose how much you're going to pay a month. And like I said, 12 months gets it down to $125 a month. That's equivalent to 1 Starbucks, whoever got the Starbucks card earlier today. All right, you can make more than that. Imagine how much you can make just off learning 1 or 2 of the closes in your next presentation that you've got, how quickly this pays for itself. For all of you in the room, the entire investment here should pay for itself in one single module and 1 appointment. It would not be fair if we didn't say, but wait, there's more. All right, I love the fact that you just have to say, but wait. I actually was on in New York City. Kevin was there on Broadway, and I did a CEO stand-up challenge. So I actually did a stand-up routine on Broadway, and just for fun, I was roasting Kevin from the stage, and I won't go into that material. But I said, this is the guy that brought to us the cultural vernacular, but wait, and that's all I said. And 200 people said, there's more. So we're going to do a one-day mastermind. You see Tom, you see me, you see Kevin. All right, so that's the last time. The last time the 3 of us were together, I think it was there, right there, we did a little one-day mastermind. We're going to do that again. It's going to be here in the Tampa area. And so anyone who signs up today, even though it's less than the amount that we're going to offer here in March, but you get a ticket to that one-day mastermind and where you get to hang out. And basically what that mastermind is it's like what you saw right up here. It's basically not just us teaching the content, but us actually pulling from you, letting you guys actually talk about your business and share what your hurdles and what your challenges are. And then you've got Tom, you've got Kevin and myself just busting through it, so you walk out of that mastermind with nothing standing in your way. So that's the but wait, there's more. And then the last thing that we'll do for anyone who signs up here today, I brought 8 of these with me. This is a one-of-a-kind, priceless replica of Zig Ziglar's Over the Top. And why is it so extraordinary? It's so extraordinary because Tom and his sisters found this book on a bookcase next to the redhead. And have you ever wondered what a master is thinking about when they write their content? Inside of this book, Zig Ziglar went inside of this book and he consumed his own content. He underlined it. He wrote notes to people. He changed chapters. He he changed quotes. He dog-eared pages. And we took this book and we meticulously replicated it with every underline, every verse, every word that Zig Ziglar did inside of here. And so this is just a little thank you gift for anybody that signs up here today. I brought 8 of them, not 10. It was all that fit in my suitcase. And so we brought those. They are one of a kind, can't be bought anywhere. And so, but we paid to have them meticulously replicated to be exactly like the book that Tom and his sisters found. So that's for people that sign up here. And so 10 priceless reproductions, only have 8. But if more than 10 of you sign up, I'll send you one. That's not a problem. And so just as a reminder, you get the sales vaults. You get access to the members-only community. You get 4 live coaching calls, $5,000 in additional bonuses. Mentorship from, having Kevin Harrington, having Zig Ziglar as a mentor. You get the mastermind that's there. And so what I would like to do, and again, if you click on that, if you go on your phone, you go to zigsecrets.com/DC, and then you click on that. If you want to do the split it option, it's $125 a month. Yes,
I'm going to make one comment. So everybody's been crying here. This is truly a national treasure, just having the 3 of you guys together. I'm incredibly honored. The time that they have committed to my crazy idea. Next time I think we're going to put you guys on the front end, but we're going to still market this because I do believe it's such an effective tool. And I do love the new with the old and how they've brought this back. And these guys have been prime. So the ones that are still here, we will still let the other tribe members that were here in on this deal. That's okay.
Yeah, we're not trying to be clever or anything. It's just, this is something where you are going to see in a major campaign in March, and you will see it in $19.99. So this is just for Garden Light. It's just for Michelle. It's just for you guys. So this is not like this is some kind of a discount. It's just a gift basically back because, we just believe in what you guys are doing.
Well, a lot of these guys have teams and they're trying to instill operations and they're trying to instill effectiveness. So it's in line with everything we've done over the past 3 days. So taking that leader that you guys are growing into and then allowing your team to have a training process. This is a great platform. Our team has used it. I love it, and I'm very grateful that you guys have invested in your time and energy.
You can bring it back. Well, no, even better is that like Stephanie Robbins, the plumber that was up there, she actually bought it for her team. And she made her whole team sit down, and then she couldn't turn it off. And so, totally fine for you to actually invest in this program and for your team. All right, this doesn't have to be a one-user, license. It's not how we do it. This is about extending the legacy. This is about helping you guys crush it in 2019. So you can absolutely, and you can bring guests to the master.